In our backyard, we have a little pet cemetery going. We have 2 dogs and a cat. And occasionally, one of us will wander up there with the kids, and there'll be conversation. Hey, Gussie, see you in heaven. Mm-hmm. Hey, Spark. Hey, Rube.
We have Raj and Abu in our yard. We also have Tom and Jerry, who lived there with the previous owners. So we have 4 cats out there also.
Yeah. I mean, you love your pets, right?
Oh my
Don't you love them so much?
Yes.
And wouldn't it be great? You pass away and you get to heaven, and all of a sudden they come running towards you. It'd be fabulous. So are pets in heaven? Is that really the deal? Hugh Ross is back with us. Hugh's a regular guest on our show. Hugh's an astrophysicist and author, senior scholar and founder of Reasons to Believe, an organization that researches and communicates how discoveries about nature harmonize with the words of the Bible. His books include The Creator and the Cosmos and Why the Universe is the Way It Is. And Hugh, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you for bringing me back.
Okay, Hugh, I know that you are a person who loves animals, and not just pets, but animals in the wild. And John and I, of course, feel the same way you do. So before we talk about our pets in heaven, talk about how you see pets, fitting in with our knowledge of God and our experience of life on the globe. What's the role that they play?
Well, I wrote a book about this called Hidden Treasures in the Book of Job, because the Book of Job is the one that really addresses what are called the soulish animals that God designed to relate to us and to serve and please us. All birds and mammals are in that category. And what causes them not to relate to us or serve and please us is our sin. And so these animals will run away from us where they see the sin. But if you take the sin factor out, they're drawn to you. They want relationship with you. And so I talk about my trips into the wilds of Canada, where I know people haven't been in 50 years. And there you get to see how animals behave where the sin factor is not in place. They're curious to start with, but then they approach you. They want to have touch with you. I mean, they really are designed to serve and please us and to relate to us. But I think there's a lesson in that. They were designed to serve and please and relate to a higher species. We human beings were designed to serve and please and relate to a higher being. And what I've noticed is when people have contact with these birds and mammals, especially the wild ones, you see a very low rate of atheism. But where people have lost that contact, you see a high rate of atheism. These animals really were designed to teach us deep spiritual lessons. I mean, I've had a number of pets, just like both of you had pets. But the thing I notice is that, when that pet bonds to me in a strong emotional way, that pet can be trained to do things that their wild cousins could never do. They outperform their wild cousins. And I'm an adult convert. What I recognize in coming to Jesus Christ as Creator, Lord, and Savior as an adult, I could see the difference in what I was able to do as a Christian compared to what I could do before I was a Christian. So likewise, when we bond to our Creator, we outperform our unbelieving, associates.
So is there a reverse effect? Do humans become different or more human or whatever by relating well to animals?
Well, the thing about animals is that unlike us, they're not sinners. And so I think one reason why we bond so well with these birds and mammals is that they will love us without condition. And so you see love like God wanted us to experience, even at an animal level. But again, that teaches us the potential of love that we can have when you take the sin factor out, and how we can really enjoy a loving relationship with our Creator. And so I think that's why I've run into people who have a stronger bond with their pets than they do with their own children. It's because the pets are not sinners, their children are. And so, but that tells us about our longing for unconditional love. We all long for that, and I think that's why we tend to bond so strongly to these animals.
So then, Hugh, go into the question about, will we see our pets in heaven?
Well, I've run into friends who say, well, my pet dog, yes. My pet cat, no. I don't want to be. And
bite my ankles.
I mean, we've seen, yeah, right. So, we want to choose which pets are going to be with us in heaven. And, there are Bible passages that people cite that say, well, it says that these creatures go to the dust. It doesn't say anything in the Bible that they're eternal. We do see statements in the Bible that make the point that spirit beings, angels and humans, are eternal. We don't see any such guarantee for the birds and the mammals. On the other hand, we don't see any Bible passage that explicitly rules that out. So my position is we can't give a definitive answer. We can definitively say that we humans are eternal. Whatever you believe about death, there will be life beyond the grave. As it says in Ecclesiastes 3, eternity is written in the heart of every human being. So we don't see that kind of passage for the birds and mammals. So you could conclude they're not going to be with us in heaven. On the other hand, there's nothing that explicitly rules out their presence with us in heaven. It does tell us in 1 Corinthians 2:9 that no human here on earth can possibly imagine or conceive how wonderful and good and rewarding life will be in the new creation. So if for some reason my pet parrot's not going to be with me, or my pet dog is not going to be with me in heaven, I know God's going to replace that with something far, far better. God never takes anything away from us without giving us something much better for those that love God and are called according to his purpose. So I'm not giving you a definitive answer because the Bible doesn't give us a definitive answer.
Dr. Hugh Ross is with us, senior scholar and founder of Reasons to Believe. It's an organization that researches and communicates how discoveries about nature harmonize with the words of the Bible. You can check out one of many books that Hugh has written, including Hidden Treasures in the Book of Job, which you just mentioned a couple minutes ago. Hugh, early in our segment together, you mentioned one of your trips, many of your trips that you've taken into the interior of Canada, looking for places where humans haven't been in decades. And I wonder if you could share some stories with us of what your encounters with animals were like, what you gained from it, what you learned about the created order or God the Creator.
Well, I've taken my wife in a couple of places where you got these really big mountain goats. And what you discover is they really like hanging around you. You sit down for lunch, they don't want your food. They just want to be near you. And they'll even follow you as you walk, on these unmarked areas. I remember once I encountered a 450-pound black bear. He was startled. I was startled. But he took a look at me and then walked about 30 feet away from me and then just sat down. I figure, well, if it's sitting down, it's not a threat. So I pulled out my camera, and he actually posed. He was looking at the camera in different directions and let me take several photos. And I had 3 colleagues with me, but they were about a half mile behind me. And they came up, and I said, I had this amazing encounter with a bear. And they just flatly disbelieved me. And I says, well, look, let me show you my camera. There they were.
Fabulous.
And probably one of the more fascinating things was, in parts of Canada, you got these really big woolly marmots. They come in at about 20, 25 pounds. And they hide in these moraine fields underneath the rocks. But this one saw me and then came out of its little rock cavern, jumped on top of a rock, and I was about, maybe 8 feet away from it. On top of that rock, he did a dance for me that lasted about 5 minutes. He just wanted to entertain me. So, and I got a whole lot of experience. I mean, I remember once being in a putt tent all by myself in the Canadian mountains, and I noticed as I set up the tent, these birds and these small mammals were watching me. And when I woke up in the morning, they were inside the tent with me.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, now wait.
Yeah.
Now wait. Now you've told that story before. I believe it's one of my favorite stories you've ever told. I have to get more details about that. So you wake up, and who's in the tent with you?
Well, I mean, there's these ground squirrels that are there. I mean, my eyes open, and there was this creature just a few inches away from me. And then there was these birds that were hopping around as well. So, yeah, it was a wonderful experience. Just saying, and just a year ago, my wife convinced me to take this trip where we could be, with the whales. It's a place in Quebec where you get to see over 100 whales per hour.
Wow.
But what I noticed was we were in this little dinghy, and there was these big whales are about 50 feet long each, and I saw 3 of them charging towards us, and it says, they're going to ram our little, because we were in one of these little Zodiacs, they're going to ram us. But at the very last minute, they dove underneath our Zodiac, swam out to the other way, and they came back and did it again and again.
Wow.
They just wanted to play with us. And there's a verse in the Bible that tells us that the whales like to frolic with the ships. And I think there's one reason why we almost wiped out the whales. The whales have such a strong affinity with humans that they came towards the whaling ships rather than running away from the whaling ships.
I see.
And therefore, we almost wiped them out.
Fascinating.
Just like we did with the passenger pigeons.
Right.
I mean, the passenger pigeons got wiped out because they would fly towards the hunters rather than away from the hunters. So, and it's sad. Wouldn't it be fun to have passenger pigeons around today?
Sure would be.
That have that strong affinity for humans.
Yeah. I mean, anytime anybody feels close to an animal, right, it's a really special feeling. Hugh, as a sidebar, the animals notwithstanding, when you say you're in places in the wilderness where you think no one's been there for for 50 years or more, that is so remote. There is such a singularity of isolation. What is that like to feel the wind and to hear nothing other than God's creation? I mean, you don't hear trucks, you don't hear people talking. You just are there immersed in the surroundings of nature.
Well, when I was a bachelor at the University of Toronto as a graduate student, I would take vacations, literally completely by myself, no other human around. And I would go to places where I know humans hadn't been. And yeah, there's something you feel. I mean, you hear every possible sound. You see what's happening with the eagles around you. And then there's the beauty of the place. And so looking up at the stars and just realizing, even here, God's with me. And, I tell people, I'll often walk into an auditorium to speak to about 500 angry atheists, and I realize I'm not alone. God is with me. But I can recall taking those vacations. I could feel the presence of God, especially felt Him when I was in something that was really remote like that, where I knew it was a 3-day hike before I would see another human being.
Do you get scared?
For some reason, I never got scared, but I don't take big risks. So, like, if there's some kind of big storm coming up, I'll say, well, I'll come back here some other time. I'm not going to take a big risk.
Yeah. Hugh, you're fascinating.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're grateful for those stories. Thanks, Hugh.
No, it's been my pleasure.
Our pleasure.
Okay, check out Hidden Treasures in the Book of Job by Dr. Hugh Ross. Also, you can check out The Creator and the Cosmos, Why the Universe is the Way It Is, and also Improbable Planet, among many, many others.
Very interesting man. Hugh Ross.